Hey guys, what is up? It is A-Ray here bringing you guys another vlog. So it has been a while since I've talked on this channel about current events or really anything like that, but this is something that I recently heard about. It's something that's been making its way through the news cycle in the last month or so, and I actually think it's pretty fucking stupid. Once again, we have the US government just making laws on shit they absolutely do not understand, and it's kind of interesting in a way, because the US government is trying to make it so like there's a ban on wireless internet routers. Now, I'm sure most of you have a router in your home where all your devices connect to, so that way you can, use multiple devices at once, right? And, connect as many devices in your house to the internet as possible. This has been commonplace now in most households across America for, over a decade now. And back in the late 90s, early 2000s, internet service providers used to charge you a fee to be able to do this, right? And as time went on, things got more advanced. They decided, this is no longer needed. Now, the problem with this law is that it pretty much invites that all over again. It's funny because the U.S. government passes these laws in a way to protect national security, right? That's always their premise. Oh, it's cybersecurity, right? Now, there are certain loopholes to this law where, if you have a router already, it's kind of just grandfathered in. But what the FCC is trying to tell these router companies like Netgear, TP-Link, and all this other stuff is that you have 1 year, essentially, to move all your manufacturing into the U.S., which is not going to happen. I'm just going to tell you right now, that's not going to fucking happen. Every time the government makes laws on this shit, they always put, an unrealistic time frame on it to try to, increase urgency. But the fact of the matter is, okay, what the U.S. government is essentially trying to do is tell all these router companies that make internet routers like Netgear, TP-Link, Linksys, what have you, that they need to move all their manufacturing into the U.S., and for all their older routers and stuff, just stop releasing firmware updates for them. And that in itself does not protect national security, because there are going to be people out there who absolutely just say, fuck no, I'm not buying a new router. I'm just going to keep the one I have because it still works, right? Well, what's going to happen, I think, is you're probably going to see a slowdown in the creation of new routers. Not that there won't be new routers available, but I think you're just going to see that it is less, you're just going to have less of a variety for a little while, right? For maybe a year or two, whatever, maybe even 3 years, depending on how long it takes these companies to move their manufacturing back into the U.S. I don't know if there's any other companies out there that would be willing to maybe contract with these big companies to make their routers. It's very possible. But the fact of the matter is, okay, what I think is going to happen is all of these companies are going to do what all the other big companies are doing, for example, Microsoft and Oracle, right? Instead of just making a product, they're just going to move to a subscription service, right? Where instead of, for example, Microsoft Office used to be a product that you could go to the store and buy, right? Same thing with, the Adobe products, with Adobe Photoshop and Adobe Premiere and stuff. This used to be, a standalone product that you could just go buy for X amount of dollars and have it forever, right? Then Office 365 came in, where it's a yearly subscription, right? You can still buy versions of Office that are permanent, but for the most part, Office 365 is the main thing now, right? Because it's always up to date, it's always current. A lot of businesses like that it's always current. So a lot of businesses buy Office 365. Same thing with the Adobe products, right? If you just make people pay a monthly fee for it, then they always have it and it's always up to date and you never got to worry about updating it or buying a new one, right? So that's it's like a live service, right? In a way. I have a feeling a lot of these router companies, what they're going to do with all their older routers like Netgear, TP-Link, Linksys, all these companies, right? I have a feeling that what they're going to do is they're going to say, well, we can't move our manufacturing back into the US, and now the FCC wants to force us to move our manufacturing back into the US. How about what we do is just charge people for their firmware updates, like a one-time fee once a year. Maybe it's $99.99 a year, or like $100 a year, or maybe $50 a year, or I don't know. Maybe there's I doubt they'll go to a monthly subscription but then at the same time, it's like it just opens the door for these companies to do predatory subscriptions and stuff like that onto the consumer that really wasn't necessary in the first place. You know what I'm saying? So like, instead of just, leaving shit the way it is and allowing these companies to do what they want, now it gives the companies an incentive to be like, all those old routers we got? Let's do this, okay? It's going to take us a while to move our manufacturing back into the US. So what we're going to do is we're just going to start charging for our firmware updates, right? Where you can pay through PayPal or with a debit card or a credit card, right? But until we can move our manufacturing back into the US, we're just going to charge a subscription service essentially for our firmware updates, or a one-time charge for our firmware updates, right? And this gives these companies the ability to monetize old equipment, right? And produce new revenue. But it also, means that if they implement something like this, it is likely not going to go away with all the newer models that they release as well, because people will become accustomed to it. That's the thing, because human beings are creatures of habit, right? So what's going to happen is they'll release new routers in the future, 3-4 years down the road, but what they're going to do is continue charging you for that firmware update. Then, what'll happen is now you can keep all the old shit while bringing in the new shit and still charging people money for legacy equipment, but also charging them for the new equipment. Maybe if you buy something new, maybe your firmware update is just cheaper. I don't know. It just, a lot of companies and the price gouging has just become so predatory that this is the only way that I could see companies justifying this while also recouping the cost of what it's going to cost them to move all their production back into the US. And the one thing I don't understand about all this is all of this is about protecting national security and protecting national security and protecting national security, right? We need to protect ourselves from China, right? But every app, right, that you download onto your phone shares your data with the company to every internet connection that you connect to. How is that not a threat to national security? You know what I'm saying? We're worried about our fucking routers. You know what I'm saying? And it's not like their equipment is super crazy advanced. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, there are routers out there that are super advanced. There's NetDuma routers and stuff like that, and there's routers out there, there's VPNs, even the government wants to ban VPNs. There's just so much shit out there that I'm just this is what you chose to focus on, and I'm not saying that it's not a justifiable concern, but it's just the idea, the way that they're going about it, I just think is wrong. You know what I'm saying? I think what they should do is just say, look, you have 5 years, right, to move all your manufacturing back into the US. And if you don't do it, we're just going to start fining you, for every month that you haven't moved your production back into the US after that 5-year mark. Or you could just say, after 5 years, we're not going to allow you to sell routers in the US that are manufactured outside of the US. But 5 years is a way more justifiable timetable than 1 year, right? And the problem is, too, it's there's no stipulations in this law about, customer privacy. There's nothing in it about customer privacy. There just fucking isn't. They just want the shit to be manufactured in the US. And I just think to myself, if you really cared about national security, you would put some requirements in there, right? I don't know. Maybe your routers need to have some type of two-factor authentication. I'm sure there's routers out there with it already, but or two-step verification. But that should be a thing. No. Like, am I wrong? Like, if your objective is to make things more secure, two-step verification should be a thing. There should be maybe, some type of encryption laws or whatever that, every router needs to have X encryption thing on it or something like that. But there's fucking none of that. They just want it to be manufactured in the US and to support GDP. But it's just the idea they pass laws on shit they don't understand, and even the old shit is just grandfathered in. It's the same thing with gun laws. It's like, oh, well, we're going to pass this new gun law. Oh, if you already have one, okay, well, then it's grandfathered in. Like, I'll never understand that. I'll never understand when, like, governments and states pass laws that the old shit is just grandfathered in. It's like, okay, well, because I understand it's like they can't enforce it because then it just makes everybody a fucking criminal. But at the same time, it just feels like they don't think about these things, or they don't speak to like professionals on it. You know what I'm saying? Like they don't seek professional help, and then they pass laws like this that just hurt the consumer. All it does is hurt regular people like you and I. And because what ends up happening is the government forces these companies into a position to just make more money. It's fucking crazy, actually, in a way, if you think about it. Because this law isn't really doing anything to protect data. There's nothing in the law that's like, okay, well, you need to produce these routers in the US, but they also need to have X requirements, right? I get the FCC handles that, but at the same time, it's like, you could have put something in there where it's like every router needs to have two-step verification. Once it's connected to the internet, it needs to have two-step verification, all this other stuff, right? None of that. So, and all it really does is just make these companies, it like puts them in a position to just take more money out of consumers. It's like, okay, well, you're going to force us to not update our old routers or just tell us we can't? Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to keep them current, but we're going to charge people for it. We're going to keep these routers current. We're going to install all the shit that we need to, but we're going to charge people for it. And we're going to charge them a yearly cost every year after that to keep their routers, until they fucking break. And then we're just going to stop manufacturing them, but we'll keep making updates for them. Just we're going to make people pay for the updates. It's fucking stupid. And I could see us going back to a model in the, late 90s, early 2000s, where they just start charging people to connect their devices to the internet. Same thing with ISPs. Like, ISPs is a whole different conversation into itself, but yeah, this law seems fucking stupid. So tell me what you guys think down below in the comment section below. Like helps me out. Subscribe if you guys want to see more A-Ray and out of this motherfucker. Peace, guys.